excited for this episode. Also, I'm just so excited altogether because it's like coming to the end of the semester. It's just such a great time of year. And I also found out that I'm going to be going to Miami for a few days. So that's going to be really exciting. It's been a good few days. So I'm in a good mood for this episode, which is great. I mean, it's not like I'm in a bad mood for other episodes, but I'm in an extra good mood this time. So it's very exciting. Anyways, today we're talking about how to genuinely be happier and love yourself. Now, if you go back and look at the blog a while back, there are a few articles on this, which is kind of what I'm trying to do here today, is take those articles and kind of go a little bit more in depth with them and put them in a podcast episode for all of you here on YouTube or on Spotify. So that's the goal of today. The first thing I have written down in order to genuinely love yourself is to realize that you're not for everyone. I think I actually posted kind of recently something on my Instagram talking about how I had to take a while away from social media, and honestly that was really helpful. But I did take a little bit of time away from social media, or just like trying to find a balance a little bit. And one of the things that I talked about in that post is that as much as I love having stuff, having my brand, everything like that online, it does cause a lot of comparison, and just like it just gets to be too much for me being online that often. So one thing that I really, kind of realized through my journey, and I will continue to be realizing, is that I'm not for everyone. I know that I'm not for everyone, and honestly, that's okay. I don't need to be for everyone. In fact, I don't want to be for everyone. I am myself, and I have learned to become really proud of the person that I am. So in recognizing that, I also am recognizing that, you know what, I'm not here to be who other people want me to be. I'm here to be me. So if someone's like, I just don't like her as a person or something, like, okay, that's fine. That's okay, because it's impossible to make everyone like you, right? And honestly, I want to find the people around me who love me for who I am, right? So that is one thing that just in doing this journey at all, I feel like has been really important to recognize. And I feel like I've been learning it my entire life, and I will continue to learn it my entire life. And I think that that's really one of the foundational things that you have to understand, because in order to accept yourself, you also need to accept that maybe not everyone will accept you. And it's a really hard truth, but that opens room for you to truly love who you are for who you want to be and who you are, not who anyone else expects you to be. Another thing that I used to talk about a lot more, but I don't think I talk about it on the podcast as much as I just used to in my everyday life, because I guess I just haven't thought about it as much. Get rid of negativity. When I came to college, one of my big things was I am not going to stand for the gossip anymore. I'm not going to stand for the negativity, anything like that. And I think when I really came in with that mindset, people just knew. No one questioned it, because it was that's just who I was. But in my past, I definitely, now, I really am not around very much negativity at all, which has been amazing. But I really, really, really had to set myself some boundaries in order to get to that place, because I noticed that being in a negative spot, being surrounded by negativity, really affected the way that I looked at life, the way that I looked at the world around me, but also myself. If there was so much negativity around, then there was a lot more comparison within me, a lot more negativity within me. And as much as putting someone down can kind of make you feel a little bit better in the short run, it doesn't make you feel better in the long run. It really makes you feel worse. So one thing that when I was trying to figure out who I am and discover myself, had to do was really learn to stop comparing myself to others and stop putting myself down by putting others down, or by just putting myself down. And with this means that you come first. You need to be able to say no if that's what is needed at the time. Being able to say no, being able to say, no, I'm just going to stay in tonight, or you know what, I need a little bit of time for myself, or you know what, I need an extension on this assignment, or anything like that. Being able to say no and to put yourself first is so important, because also by putting yourself first, you're going to be able to get to know the person that you are and get to know what helps you. So like, for example, by putting myself first, I learned that I could tell my professors, hey, I do not do good assignments. I don't do well on my assignments if it's after 8 p.m. because I just don't. Like, I've just found that that's the pattern. So I'm gonna start doing my homework earlier, and if I don't get it done by 8 p.m., I'm gonna have to ask for an extension. And by doing that, I was able to put myself first. I was really scared to, and not everyone has been very receptive of that. But being able to do that has helped me also learn that I do better going to bed earlier and waking up earlier than other people. I usually go to bed, like I seriously went to bed at 8:30 the other night. Yeah. I woke up at 6 a.m. this morning. Like, I just do really well if I wake up earlier in the morning, which also means that I have to go to bed earlier at night. So by setting those boundaries, saying no, putting myself first, I learned a lot more about myself. And honestly, these days, I've been more energized than I think I ever have in my entire life, because I know my schedule and my routine and what works best for me now. And sometimes pushing yourself out of your comfort zone can be helpful too. So you want to know your limits. You want to know when to say no. But you also, when there's a situation where you think it could really help you grow, or you think that it could be good for you, there's no you're maybe just a little nervous about it. Being able to step out of your comfort zone is really important. And I have found that one of the best ways to do this is actually to start very, very small. So when I think maybe in high school, I challenged myself to every day do one thing out of my comfort zone. And I started really small. So something as simple as, oh, I like those person's shoes, I'm going to compliment them, even if I don't really know them. And so I'd just be like, oh, hey, I like your shoes, and it felt really awkward and I didn't like it, but people were always really happy when I complimented them on that. And then I kind of started to pushing a little bit more. So like, oh, hey, maybe there's someone who seems like a really good friend, but I don't actually know them very well. So maybe I'm going to reach out to them and say hi or something. Or maybe I'm going to post that photo that I like on Instagram, but I could pick out a million things that I think maybe other people wouldn't like. And I just kind of kept pushing myself out of my comfort zone a little bit more every single day. Things like, singing in the car at a stoplight and not caring if people look into your window and see that you look crazy, or doing different things like that. And without noticing, once I started making a habit of it, it was like every single day I was like craving that one thing that made me step out of my comfort zone, until it got to a point where it was like whenever I did something, or whenever I wanted to do something but I was nervous, I immediately was like, well, I'm stepping out of my comfort zone, so we're gonna do it, right? And of course, if it's something dangerous, don't do it. But I think you naturally, instinctively kind of know the difference there, hopefully. And I just kept, pushing myself out of my comfort zone for whatever seemed like it could actually really help me grow or help me become a better person, to the point where I am now like I think the big thing for me was talking to strangers, or talking to new people at school or something. And now it's like I have conversations with random people on the way to the bus stop or something. It's, and you have to know your limits. You have to know what's safe and what's not safe. But I really think that putting that into practice completely changed my life. So that is the one thing that, if you're going to pick out anything from this, I say that I talk about the other stuff on the podcast a lot, the inner healing, the self-work, the, not being judgmental, things like that. But this one is in practice, here is a plan on how to do it. And I think it completely changed my life. Maybe it won't change yours, but I think it could. Another thing I have written down here is inner work and healing, which is, again, something I talk about on the podcast a lot. But I think that really, really having a difference and finding that line between self-care, which is just like, taking care of yourself, because we all need it, but also that inner work and healing where it's really going to get uncomfortable, where it's really going to be like, let me sit down and journal about how I feel right now. Let me meditate and spend time with myself, nothing distracting me. Let me force myself to not be on social media or online for a little bit, so I'm just sitting with myself. Things like that, like that inner work, that inner healing, working with a counselor, working in therapy, doing, journaling, just really like paying attention to who you are, asking yourself the big questions, like that kind of thing can make you feel so much closer to the human being that you are and to the soul that you are, and like however like spiritual you want to get, like it just makes you feel so much closer. And I really, really love doing that, and I honestly have been craving some of that recently. And by doing these podcast episodes, it is really helpful because I get to a little bit, but I've really been craving the like really digging deep into everything that I've been feeling lately. And I there's just been so much going on lately that it hasn't happened. And honestly, I think this next month is probably going to go by pretty fast. But after that, I'll be settled into my new job, settled into my new apartment, back from trips for a little while. So it might be time to do that in like June-ish. Maybe we can do it together. We'll have to see. Now, something that goes a little bit along with the negativity, I'm kind of skipping back and forth on this, sorry you guys. But not just the negativity, but also switching your perspective on things. Sometimes, even if you're not surrounded by negativity, even if you're not feeling super negative, switching your perspective can completely change things too. So something that my mom talks about a lot when I'm dealing with some difficult things is the baby in the backseat. Now, the baby in the backseat is like if you think of a situation where you're driving and someone is kind of driving nearby you and it's just, being like completely reckless, crazy driver, speeding like crazy, almost going through red lights, swerving in and out of lanes, things like that. And it just, it's frustrating. Even if you're not being particularly negative about it, it can be really frustrating and it can just make your day a little bit more not it. And in that moment, being able to switch your perspective, because what if this person who is driving like crazy is doing that because they have a newborn baby who is, dealing with some sort of medical emergency or choking or, something like that. And even though the likelihood is not that is the specific thing that's happening, there is a likelihood that the reason why this person is driving fast and being a little reckless is like there probably is some sort of reason. And maybe it's not a good reason per se, but there is probably some sort of reason. And just recognizing that there's always more to this story. Even if you think you know the whole story, there's always more to it because you don't know every single thing about someone's life. Maybe they're having a bad day, or maybe they're dealing with some underlying medical conditions that make them a little bit more irritable. Or maybe they grew up in an environment that made them feel really unsafe, and so they're not maybe comfortable opening up, or maybe, this and that. Like, there's so many different things that can lead someone to the exact moment that they're in. And I talked about this on one of those other episodes. I can't even remember which one it was. But the fact that like your life is, all of the events that led up to this exact moment led up to it. Like every single thing makes an impact on your life. And so recognizing like, I don't know everything about anyone. I only know everything about me, and I could argue that I don't know everything about myself. So like the fact is like if I don't even know if I know everything about myself, how am I going to expect that I know everything about someone else? And that can be a complete game changer for things. I mean, dealing with some of the most complicated things that I've dealt with other people, with, just really, really stressful things where people are just completely rude to you, nothing excuses their behavior. But recognizing the reason why they did that, like some of the people who have hurt me the most in life, I can't say I hate them. And I have forgiven them because, as much as, it's not like I want them to stay in my life. It's not like I'm going to just be like, oh, everything's fine, right? But I think one of the most important things that helped me move on from those experiences and just have my own mental peace from that, as much as I can, is being able to recognize why they did or said or hurt me the way that they did. For example, I'm gonna bring it onto the podcast, and I wasn't sure. I've actually kind of brought this up in the last few episodes, but then I cut it out because I just wasn't sure how to do this. But I grew up with a not very present dad in my life, and my biological dad. And I love that man so much. But he's not really that much of a father figure to me because he has a lot of faults and a lot of things that he has done that are honestly unforgivable, even though my family has forgiven him for them. And the reason why we were able to do that, or at least just make peace with it, especially for me, is because we know that the way that he grew up was not anything like us. The way that his, genes are, the way that all of that, like, he is not the same as us. And even though that is sometimes hard to recognize, like, he's not me. He's not my mom. He's not my grandma. He's not my grandpa. He's not me, right? And so I don't know everything about him. And what I do know about him is the way that he grew up, his environmental factors, and a bunch of different things that, even though it's not saying that his behavior has been okay in the past, it is saying that, it somehow explains it in a way. And even though, him not being very present in my life is not okay, the way that he grew up and the way that he is, it kind of helps me understand a little bit more as to why. And that helped me realize, I guess I was lucky and I never grew up thinking that he wasn't present in my life because of me. I always knew that it was because of the own things going on in his own life. But that doesn't mean it's okay to not be present in your daughter's life, right? But it did help me accept it a little bit more because as unfortunate as it is, that's the reality. And it helped me accept the fact that I can't change it. I've tried, I can't change that. And so instead accepting, like, okay, you know what? Like, it's not okay. But recognizing who he is and how he grew up, it makes it understandable in a way. He has a different life from me. He has a very different life from me. And he just isn't in a place where he knows how to be a present dad in my life. And now I have a bunch of siblings and he is a present dad in their life, and it's incredible. It's incredible to see that, and it's incredible to see the way that he's changed. But he also has a lot of things about him too that, like, he might not change. And learning that that's not my responsibility. That's not me. Like, I don't have to change that. That's who he is. And it was just a big game changer in my life. And I've done that for a lot of different situations where things have hurt me, where people have hurt me, where situations have just not been ideal. And it's not easy, but I do think that being able to shift your perspective a little, again, I cannot stress this enough. It does not mean that it makes things okay, but being able to at least have 1 ounce of just perspective change or understanding can make you feel so much lighter inside. Just can make you feel so much like, okay, that's not a weight on my shoulders then. And that that can be so empowering and can be so helpful, because a lot of times when we're not happy, it's because we've got these things weighing on us. We've got mental health issues weighing on us, which in that case, we need to go see a doctor or get help, and that's okay. Or we've got other people's things weighing on us, or we've got situations weighing on us, or we just have feelings weighing on us. And understanding what is actually in your control and what isn't in your control can take away a bunch of those things. So this is where you want to spend a lot of quality time with yourself again, and really figuring out what is it that is actually in your control and what isn't. And this is also a moment where you have to learn to be kind to yourself and to be grateful for who you are. You have to learn that it's okay to make mistakes, that it's okay to be yourself, that it's okay to recognize that you are always, always, always learning. Because honestly, those small moments, those moments where you're learning, where you're making mistakes, where you're figuring things out, where you're just having fun in the little moments that aren't planned, like, I think those are some of the most important moments that make up life. I think, without the little moments in my everyday life, what would I do, right? Every day is basically the same for me, but the thing that can help keep me going is the fact that there's those little moments. Something different happens every day. And just being able to recognize that has completely shifted the way that I feel about my surroundings, about myself, all of these. So today, as this episode comes to a close, give yourself a big hug, please, because you are incredible. You are amazing the way that you are, and you deserve to love yourself, and you deserve to be happy. So give yourself time, take it slow, and I know that you can get there eventually. I'll see you next week.